welcome to another edition of the Wright Experience. I'm Dr. William T. Wright, Jr., the founder and host of this show. And tonight, ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, I had to go back and count and make sure. This is episode number 89 of the Wright Experience. And so I'm certainly glad that we have lasted this long and have continued to try to bring you the very best content that we can find. Tonight, we have a return guest who's done some more amazing things, and we're certainly excited to get the opportunity to talk to her tonight and have her impart into our lives and make us all better. Children's author and educator, Dr. Kimberly P. Johnson, grew up in Shelby, North Carolina. I've heard that a time or two. She is married to Jeff Johnson, who retired from the United States Air Force after 22 years of service. She is the author of 25 children's books. Kimberly received her doctorate in curriculum teaching and leadership from Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts. She also holds a master's degree from Clemson University in youth development and leadership. Kimberly also has an early childhood degree and a communications degree from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. That was kind of hard for me to get out. No, just kidding. She completed her postdoctoral work in the Advanced Leadership Program at Harvard University's Graduate School in Education. And she also recently completed a certificate in diversity and inclusion at Cornell University. Kimberly is a creative thinker and has a passion for helping others. She is currently a faculty member at Clemson University and teaches creative activities for youth, designing effective youth programs, youth and family, and working with diverse youth. Dr. Kimberly Johnson also teaches creative writing for social change at Clinton College in South Carolina and is a course facilitator for the Leading, Learning, Managing Evidence, and Leading with Equity and Excellence courses at Harvard University in the Graduate School of Education. Kimberly is a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and she is a part of the Rock Hill alumni chapter in South Carolina. She's received numerous community awards to include the Paul Harris Fellow Award given by Rotary International for her work in literacy, the York County Citizen of the Year Award, the 2016 Walker Solomon Award from the South Carolina Educators Association, the Omega Psi Phi Perseverance Award, the Carl Carpenter Gold Heart Award for Community and Educational Contributions, and the National Heritage Award. She has been the guest reader for President and Ms. George Bush at the White House for their annual Easter egg roll. She was on the Today Show in New York City, interviewed by the London Times and the Tokyo Shimbun newspapers, and her most recent book, entitled No Fear for Freedom, the story of the Friendship Nine gained national and international recognition when she spearheaded the efforts to have the sentences overturned for a group of men, the Friendship Nine, who conducted a sit-in in 1961 at a segregated lunch counter in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Kimberly is also an ambassador for the King Center in Atlanta and is a program collaborator for Dr. Bernice King, the last living daughter of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. She is also currently the curriculum design specialist for the King Center in Atlanta, and her most recent book that she co-wrote with Dr. Bernice King, entitled It Starts With Me. We'll talk about that book tonight. And above all of her accomplishments, she always says that her greatest joy is knowing that her grandparents taught her what good character looks like and raised her to believe in God and self. And at this time, I'd like to bring aboard my friend for a bunch of years,
Yes.
Dr. Kimberly
yes,
Johnson.
yes. Hello, my friend. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, welcome back. Welcome. Well, I had to get you back up here because you're doing some more amazing things. So,
wow.
Talk to us about this new book. That's wanted to jump right into that. Tell us about it.
Awesome. This is the book, y'all. It's like so cute. It's called It Starts With Me. And it is a book that I co-wrote with the amazing Dr. Bernice King. And the funny thing is, I went to the King Center probably about 12 years ago. She and I were talking about it not too long ago to try to figure out, when did I come to the King Center and what did I go there for initially? I initially went there as part of a project where we were going to collaborate and write these children's books together. But then the world was kind of weird at the time. And it was right after the incident happened, the murder of Michael Brown. So we ended up going to Ferguson, and I became part of that team that just kind of went out and worked with communities and kids. And it just kind of spiraled from there, that there were so many other things that she was working on that were so great in the community that the book got put on the back burner while we were working on the forefront with these other great projects. Her Nonviolence Opportunity Watch camp that she does every summer to really teach children how to solve problems and work in the community non-violently and effectively. From that to all of the other great things that she was engaged in. So this book just really sat on the back burner for a minute, but God's perfect timing is what I always believe. So it came out when it was time for the book to come out. So I'm excited about the journey.
Okay. And so talk to us a little bit about it. What's in it?
The book is about a young lady named Amora, and Amora takes the message of what it means to be nonviolent, what it means to be an advocate, what it means to be love, to really exhibit love, and how to deliver that in the community. I think so often we talk to children about love, but we don't really get into the deeper understanding of what love means, because love is one of those things, when you think about it, you have to use it to create the community that you're in. You don't just say, I love you, because that's not deep enough. So we have to really think about, what does it mean to teach our children to walk it, to live it, to exhibit it, how to be love. And that's her national and international, global, if you will, movement, is the Be Love movement. And the concept behind that is how to accept and treat everyone with a great degree of dignity, respect, and love. And that's what we want our children to learn. And this book is written for younger children, because we're starting to notice in our world, and I'm sure you can attest to this, Dr. Wright, is that we've got to start a lot sooner than we thought we had to, with sending these messages out of, respecting and tolerating, people around us, so that we can get to a more balanced society where we're not constantly trying to figure out how to undo things. So this book is really one that reminds us to start with ourselves, start with looking in that mirror and reflecting on who you are, and are you doing everything to exhibit what love looks like in the community and in the world.
And isn't that absolutely an essential element that we need so desperately now? Just that whole unity piece, that whole teaching people how to be unified in this world of divisiveness. Absolutely. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
And so while we're kind of on the subject of rearing children and getting children up to where they need to be, what do we do with this current teaching climate? And how do we ensure that we are capturing and keeping the best in our profession? What do you think we need to do?
Oh, first of all, we've got to learn to truly respect and trust the process.
Mm-hmm.
Our teachers, whenever I go in and I teach teacher trainings or I do workshops, I always tell my teachers, I'm not here to tell you how to teach, because you already know that. You got the degree to prove it. You are here because you've done the work. But my job is to give you those practical common sense skills that sometimes we forget to use. One of them being just walk into a classroom and say, how are you today? How are you feeling? But so often there's so much pressure on our teachers, on our admin unit to get things done that don't allow that grace and mercy that we all need. We're so busy checking off boxes. And I think we've got to pull back a little bit and give our teachers the autonomy they need to go in there and do what they really want to do, as far as raising great learners and leaders. Because teachers went into the field because they did love children. They did love the idea of creating change. They they did love the idea of making kids see that light bulb effect. But now we are seeing teachers who don't get a chance to do that. And so now they're not as excited as they were with that initial effort of creating change. So giving them more autonomy, allowing them to be great teachers without so much pressure of checking boxes. And I get it. We've got to get certain things done. The testing, I have a love-hate relationship with testing. I think it's necessary to gauge how well our children are doing, but I also think there are other ways, because you can't gauge whether a child comes in, takes a test and flubs it because they're hungry. Because did anybody do a test to see if or a benchmark to see if they were starving that morning? Because you know as well as I do, when you're hungry, you can't think right.
Right.
So some of our children have these mitigating circumstances that won't allow them to walk in and be 100%. So we've got to acknowledge that up front and then allow teachers to say, how else can I gain this information from our students besides just one metric? So it's got to be a broader effort to see what our children know and engage them in the learning process so they don't walk away disliking education. And I see a lot of that now, especially with our little kids. I work with little kids almost every day, and I'm surprised at how many kids don't get excited about reading and writing at the level that I think we did when we were children. So we got to do some things, undo some things, I guess I should say.
So let me go here for a minute. You followed your career all the way back to University of North Carolina at that place. No, I'm kidding. At Chapel.
Oh, come on now. I know us. We got a little of this.
Yeah, that's okay.
But we're still great.
That's okay. But way back then until now, you graduated communications major. Did the airline work for a while. Now you've accomplished author, motivational speaker, went and got the doctorate degrees, all of that amazing work. What are some things that you would look back now and say that you're most proud of in your?
I think I'm proud of getting my undergraduate degree based on my circumstances, because I grew up with my grandparents, and I think you and I talked about this last time, but my grandparents raised me, and they were, essentially poor people. When you think about, poverty and how it does truly have an impact, and how those circumstances can build what we know as resiliency and grit in people, I think that resiliency and grit allowed me to set the foundation for all the other things that I'm doing in life. Now, I'm not by any means saying that it was a good thing that we didn't have, but I am saying it made me a better person because we didn't have everything. So I think learning how to navigate my community, knowing how to use the resources, knowing how to not be afraid to step up and say, I need some help. Those kinds of things set the foundation for me to get in there and say, now I got to go hard at it, because there are other kids that were like me, that are like me when I was back then. So I've got to go hard so I can get the platform that I need to be the voice for some of these children. Because, my grandparents, they were illiterate. My grandmother had a third grade education. My grandfather had, he could put an X by his name. That was as far as he got. Not because he didn't love education, but during the time growing up, they had to stop going to school and he had to work on the farm. So he missed all those formative years, but they were smart people. And they understood that when you help other people, it comes back to you in 3-4 fold. And so I think that foundation of giving back was set early. And so now my drive is every day I wake up, my prayer is, Lord, help me make the world better than it was yesterday, and help me create change in the world. And so those things are the things that I'm the proudest of, is when I can empower some young people to do great things, or I can encourage a teacher or a community advocate to keep working hard, even in the middle of discouragement. How do we keep pushing them forward? Because there is that light and we just got to get to it. So I'm proud of my grit, and I'm proud of my resiliency, because they taught me how to be a great community advocate.
So is that, Dr. Johnson, what makes you be able to walk into a room? I've seen this 4 or 5 times now. Room full of people that you don't know, and you're able to motivate them to walk out of those rooms ready to conquer the world. Where did that come from?
Oh man, I tell people all the time, it's easy when you believe it. If you believe something, you don't have to sit there and try to figure out how am I going to say this. You just walk into the room and let your heart lead you. And so when I walk into a room and I look at these faces of these amazing educators who have given their lives to change the world, they've given their lives, because we know educators don't make the money they should make. They could probably walk out and get jobs where they're making a whole bunch more money than they are now. But they are doing it because they're committed and they're passionate. And Webster tells us all the time, from the definition in the dictionary, that passion is the part of your soul that compels you to act. So every day when they get up, even though they're tired, they're worn out, they've done it 10 times in a row, they get up because they're passionate. So when I look at their faces and I think they come in here every single day, I need to acknowledge that. I need to let them know they're valuable, and I need to let them know that there's still work that they can do even in the middle of feeling tired and sometimes frustrated. So it's easy because I believe it so much, and it doesn't seem like it's a hard task for me because it's what I walk.
Outstanding. So that's why I'm going to turn you loose in Sumter shortly.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready.
So the element of you talked about teachers and cultivating teachers and what we need and so forth and so on. And I've been on this kick lately, and I'd like to have you speak to this if you choose to. We've been talking about investing in education, work of educating children, and we certainly need to continue to do that. But I've said now that we got to turn our attention to making sure that we invest in educators, the people that do the work.
Yeah.
We need stuff, but we need money too.
Yeah. And until we really get it, and I think sometimes we dance around it. I don't know why this is such a hard conversation to have. I mean, I try to think about it because I try to be, open-minded. I try to be, just really focused on what we have to get done. And I think to myself, we have to make sure we're educating our children. We have to make sure that they're prepared to be adults, because just because they grow up and become 18 or 19 or 20 doesn't mean that they're fully equipped to be an adult. So we've got to make sure that we are preparing our young people to go out into the world and be valuable and viable. Now, that's not saying everybody's got to go and get a college degree or a doctorate or whatever they choose to, but I do think we have to have educated and informed young people who are going out here making these decisions, because they will be the politicians, the lawyers, the doctors, the engineers. They are going to be these people that will keep this world moving. So to me, it's a no-brainer that you would take the very people who are navigating this process, i.e. our educators, our administrative folks, our community liaisons, our community advocates, and really think about that's where the funds, the resources need to be put into, because they've got to live too. The reality is they've got bills. I was just at a restaurant this past week, and a gentleman came up to me because he recognized me from the book of the No Fear for Freedom book, The Friendship 9, because he was a middle school teacher, and he was telling me how he used that book to help his young people understand how important it is for them to be advocates in the community and use their voices, much like the Friendship 9 did. And so I was like, wow, that's great. Thank you for sharing my work in that way. But at the same time, I'm sitting here going, why are you my waiter? Because, and we had a really nice little conversation after, and he said, I've got 2 kids. I gotta make sure I've got money for my kids. And I'm thinking, here it is, a Saturday. You've already worked Monday through Friday, probably Monday night through Friday night, grading papers and all the other prep work you have to do. And your 2 days off, Saturday and Sunday, you're spending at a restaurant. And he was so energetic and enthusiastic and wonderful. And I think, how in the world are we messing this up? We have got to make sure that our educators have what they need in order to take care of their families and their desires and wants and needs in some cases, as well as raise our children, because it doesn't make sense that we are not focusing on what those avenues and venues need to look like in the world today. We got a lot of money in this country. We got a lot of money in the world, despite what we hear all the time. I think there's a lot of funding that can be redirected or recircumvented in ways that our educators don't have to go out here and work 2 and 3 jobs just to make it, because they're deciding to give their passion and their heart to our children so they can be ready to go out into the world and create change. It's just not, it doesn't make good common sense. But my grandmother used to say, baby, common sense ain't common. So I guess that's what our struggle is just trying to get some common sense out of this whole operation. But it's very convoluted on how we are navigating this process with our educators. So we just keep pushing. We got to get out there and vote. We got to voice. We got to make sure that our money is where our mouth is. So our mouth has to be that tool that's going to speak, to the power of, we need to take care of our educators because they're taking care of us.
I don't know. I might need to send you to some general assemblies to advocate on our behalf with that. That's outstanding.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Johnson, I've always wanted to ask you this question, so we're going to do it tonight. So, at the end of your career, whenever that is, what else? You've accomplished a lot. What else would you like to accomplish during your tenure? Are you 10 years away from being finished? I know how old you are, but I won't discuss that. So 10 years away.
I'm only 27. 27 again. So are you asking me what's the next journey of my life?
That's really where I'm going. Yes.
Well, let me tell you, because I got a plan, but my plan ain't always God's plan. So I'm just praying that this plan will come to fruition. Okay. I just finished up my BCBA coursework. And now I'm getting all my 2,000 hours in so I can become a board certified behavior analyst. And the reason I really want to focus on that is because I think that so often, the behaviors that we're seeing in our children are being, they're being labeled. Our children are being labeled so much. And when I say that, I'm particularly talking about all children, but our Black and brown children in particular. They are by far being sent out of classrooms more for behavior issues. They're being diagnosed with mental illnesses. And I'm not saying that that's not real, because it is very much real. But I think that sometimes it's disproportionate on how many of our Black and brown children are receiving these kinds of labels. And when you look at the demographics of the group that is in this field, and this is what really drew me to BCBA, is that about 5%, between 5 and 8% of the facilitators or the technicians or the analysts are not Black and brown. So we got a lot of people that don't look like us diagnosing us. And so that really drew me to the field, that I want to be able to go in there and look at some of those cultural arenas and see what are we doing or not doing that we can look at that will bring some of this disproportion down with our children being labeled as behavioral issues. Because I think that some of this stuff we can handle inside the classroom, inside our homes, without the label being attached to it. So that's really got my attention. And I want to get in the field, and I want to really start writing some great tools and strategies and techniques on how we can help our children modify their behavior, not manage it. Because I think when we start thinking about managing behaviors, it's something we have to keep up. If we start managing behaviors in elementary, they get to middle school. Now we're managing behaviors in middle school. Then they get to high school. Now we're managing behaviors. You know what happens if they get out of high school? You know who's going to manage it? And this is another rabbit hole, is law enforcement. And, that's concerning to me. So we've got to figure out how to teach our children to learn how to modify their own behaviors. If they're doing certain things, how do they step back and say, is this a good choice? Is this something I need to do in this moment? And they have to be able to say no and then redirect themselves. Because if we're constantly going, no, stop, sit up, sit down, go over here, you're going to the office, we're managing. And that's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for teachers. It's a lot of work for school systems. So we've got to start teaching our children how to modify, teaching parents. I've gotten really more involved with parent training, because we could throw darts all day. If we do not target working with our parents more strategically, or the caregiver more strategically, we're not going to get to the outcomes that we want. So we can work with the kids all day, send them home, and then it gets undone, and then they come back and we start over again. So we really have to think about, how do we train parents to be stronger, more focused advocates for their children and for their household. So behavior analysis, I think, is my new deal.
I like that, and so desperately needed in our profession. We're struggling every day in public schools with how to effectively address what you're talking about, and I like that whole modifying as opposed to managing.
Oh
Public schools, particularly now, because of resource allocations and the lack thereof, we do spend a large amount of time managing as opposed to being able to modify. And I don't know that the average classroom teacher is really trained to modify, as you're suggesting.
No, they're not. And that's what we have to really look at, because here's what I found out is that when you think about behavior analysis, most of the stuff that we are learning through this coursework is stuff that teachers organically do every single day. There's a process called the PREMAC principle that I learned in my coursework. Well, the PREMAC principle is first this, then that. So basically, and they call it grandma's law for short, because your grandma used to say, first we're going to get this done, then you can get that done. That's what teachers do all day. First, let's finish our homework, then our classwork, then we can go outside and have some free time. So those strategies are really aligned with what teachers are organically doing anyway. We just have to find that common language that connects it. So I don't think, once we look at it and see what it is, I think teachers are going to be excited, because they're already doing a lot of this stuff just by default of being a great educator. So we just got to get them to see that these strategies can be modified just a bit to work with anything you're already doing. But a lot of teachers are scared of it, because it sounds like, oh no, I've got to learn how to do something else. And it's not. It's something you're already doing. You just have to line it up in a way that it is working with the premise of behavior analysis.
And an extension of what's already going on in the classroom.
What's already going on. Absolutely.
So you see why I keep having you come up here, because we learn stuff new every time you come. So,
well, you know what? I'm out here in these streets. So that's how I'm learning too. So I tell people, anytime I ever get to a point that I can't be out there with my sleeves rolled up in a classroom, working with teachers, working with parents, or somewhere in the community doing something, I won't love what I do. I only love this part of my journey, being an author, because I get to still be in the field and working. I mean, I don't envy your work at all, Dr. Wright. I am better equipped out here in a classroom, and I know you guys must miss it sometimes, because I know you are an educator at heart. So I hope that you're still sneaking into a classroom every now and again and throwing some knowledge out there, because otherwise I think you'd be very, very, very disappointed.
Well, I try to be visible and help where I can. But
that's what I love about you, is that commitment. And I know that, there's a lot of folks out there that are on higher levels, because you guys are the helicopter view. You're seeing how we can make the changes at higher levels. And I applaud you for that, because without you, without the William Wrights, we're not going to be able to create the change we want to see at the lower levels. So thank you for being that helicopter view and for also looking out for your educators. And that's why I think you have so many people that are just like following you around here because they know your commitment. So thank you for that, because we couldn't do it without people leading the way for us. That's how it works.
Well, thank you for the plug. I appreciate that. I owe you. I owe you.
I want to make sure that people know how to get in touch with me.
Okay,
so,
let's do that. Let's do that.
Yes.
So
Because
tell us
if you need me for anything, let's talk about it. I will come and help you and, share my knowledge with your organization or with your community, because that's what keeps me out here. And I love bringing the knowledge that I'm learning from my different, explorations out to the community. So I'm excited about the things I'm able to do and sharing them.
So we do that through what measure?
You can check out my website at www.simplycreativeworks.com. Right there, I see it in front of me. Okay. Or if you want to just email me directly, you can catch me at everydaycoaches@gmail.com. So that's how you get in touch with me. And I'm pretty accessible most of the time.
Yeah, even for me.
Even for you, of course. When you call, it's like, hello.
Well, thank you, Dr. Johnson. As always, such an enlightening opportunity to talk with you, and you always bring it so we can be better because of what you tell us. And congratulations on your collaborative book and all the work that you're doing for universities, and just staying tremendously busy, and as well as this new work on behavior analysis. I think that's going to be awesome for.
I think it is too. And like I said, my goal is to try to figure out how we can make this thing more balanced out here, because our young people have so much to offer. But if they're immediately seen as problematic, then it's going to be hard to get to the good stuff. So we've got to figure out, what do we move out of the way so we can open up the space for the good stuff. And some of us, you just need somebody who can help them navigate the process. And that's what I'm hoping to do with this behavior analysis certification.
Okay. All right. Dr. Johnson, if you hold on with me for just a minute, we'll come back and close out the show.
Sounds good.
My guest next week on the Wright Experience is going to be Mr. Odell Taylor. Mr. Odell Taylor is he's recently received a promotion. He is now a vice president in the company of HMH Learning. We're looking forward to having him next year. Next week, we're going to talk to him about his promotion, but we're also going to delve into his work to try to make sure that he networks and cultivates leaders throughout the country. He has done some amazing work over his career to ensure that leaders have spaces and forums to be able to grow and learn from each other. And so that'll be next week on the Wright Experience, 7:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That date is February 23rd, 2023. Dr. Johnson, thank you once again for coming back. And when you write your next book and do your next thing, we'll have you back again.
Sounds like a plan, my friend.
We always enjoy learning from you and hearing of your exploits and the things that you're doing to make our lives better. And certainly, I'm very proud of you. All these years, you said 20. How would you say you were? 27 years old.
27.
I guess maybe 26 years ago.
One of them again.
but very, very proud of the work that you've accomplished, and will continue to do. And we're looking forward to seeing you in the great state of South Carolina. And
sounds good. I'll be there, ready to rock and roll, my friend.
Thank you very much. And to the Wright Experience, good evening, audience. Good evening.